In today's video, I'm going to show you how to use the decorative quilt stitches on the Janome CM17. Hi, I'm Jamieson-Hirst of Chatterbox Quilts, and today I am working with the Janome CM17. Thanks so much to Janome Canada for providing me with this machine so I can share these particular stitches with you. So, when you're doing what we call walking foot quilting, you might want to use some of these stitches, these decorative quilt stitches on the machine, because there's a variety of them you can use and they're kind of fun. So we want to take a look at them today, but first I want to talk about how to set the machine up. So I've got the zigzag or regular needle plate in because these stitches are not just a straight stitch, they go back and forth. And I've got a blue tip needle in for the type of thread that I'm using today, which is a 40 weight polyester. And I have on one of the AccuFeed Flex feet. So the AccuFeed Flex system on the Janome CM17 is similar to what you would call walking foot quilting, but it's a little bit different, but you can think of it as walking foot quilting. Okay, so I have several different choices of what I call foot soles that I can use on the AccuFeed Flex foot holder. Today I'm using the UD foot sole because it has the best visibility. You'll see that when I start sewing. But there are other choices as well. The kind of regular sole that's usually on those AccuFeed Flex foot holders is the AD foot. So I've got that here, the AD sole. I could use that if I wanted to. I could have even used the VD foot, which is on its own holder. It doesn't come off, so it's integral to that foot holder. And you can see it's much narrower than the AD sole, or the UD sole that I'll be using. So you might want to use that one. Or you could use what the machine is going to tell me to use. I'm going to fool the machine in a minute because I want to use these AccuFeed Flex feet. But what it's going to suggest to me is to use an F foot or an F2 foot. This is the F foot, this is the F2 foot. So you could use those if you wanted to do that and not use the AccuFeed Flex system. But I like that system because it moves the top and bottom along at the same time and it gives a really nice result. I also have this quilt guide bar, which is something that I can use if I want to do several lines of stitching and I want them to be a certain distance apart. I can put this into the back of the foot holder, either this VD foot that I've got here right now, or in the AccuFeed Flex regular foot holder. I always have a hard time getting this in. So we start from what I consider kind of the wrong side. It'll usually go through. Once I get it in there, I can take it out and put it in the other way. I'm right-handed, so this seems to work better for me. And there we go. It's nice and tight because you do want it tight in there, right? You don't want it moving around. But you could run it along a previous line of stitching. You could run along a seam, whatever you want to have the distance from, and just adjust this to the appropriate width and just stitch along. So that's really helpful for stitching multiple lines where you want the same spacing in between them. All right, so I'm going to move these other feet off here because I've already got my foot installed. As I said, I've got the UD foot in here, and you'll see that in just a moment. But let's find those stitches first, shall we? So how do we do that? Well, you're at your home screen. You're going to go into the sewing application mode, and then you're going to go into the quilt mode, and you're going to move along to the second page, and you can see the decorative quilt stitch. So when I click on that, you can see that there's actually 6 of them. So we have the Serpentine stitch. This is really a lot of fun, this one actually. And you've got Patchwork 1, Patchwork 2, Decorative 1, I think that one's really pretty, Decorative 2, and Decorative 3. So all quite different and kind of fun to use to quilt your projects. And of course you can make different adjustments on them. So let's go back to the Serpentine stitch to start with. You can adjust the length on these and the width on some of them as well. So when I'm using this, I said I like to use the AccuFeed Flex system, right? So to fool the machine, I always say I fool the machine, is I click on that hamburger menu at the top, and then you can see that the manual dual feed setting is off. Okay, that's what its normal mode is. I want to turn it on. I want to use this AccuFeed Flex system, so I click on. You're going to hear the machine make a little bit of noise there, and it is now ready to go. I just click OK at the bottom, and now it is activated. Hard to tell it's activated because you're not going to see anything different on the screen. However, when you go to stitch along, you'll see the foot has these little kind of feed dogs that will start working now and move the quilt along. So let's look first at the Serpentine stitch. And I'm going to change the length of it, just so you can see a little bit better, to 2.5. All right, so I'm going to take my little quilt sandwich here, and I'm going to stitch along. Let's try, how about in the center here? I just want you to be able to see this first. All right, so we're going to go along with this and see how it looks. Okay, I'll lock my stitches here. It'll stop at the end of that iteration of the stitch, and then I can clip my stitches and move it over. So here we go. That's what it looks like. It looks quite pretty. I really like this stitch, actually. I think it's great. I think this is great for modern quilts, and just run it from the top to the bottom and move it over and keep doing the same thing, and it's a really pretty stitch, actually. There's one more thing I didn't mention to you on the screen that I want to go back and show you, and that is this little icon at the bottom. Well, there's maybe two things I want to show you. There's this icon. Right now it says on. If you click it, it'll change to off, and that is a lock stitch. That's the locking stitch that will happen at the beginning of your stitching if you want it to. And if you want it to, you got to click it so it says on, right? Okay. There's also this, which allows you to flip your stitches vertically. As you can see, it looks a bit different now. All right, so something else in this area you'll notice is that when it is off right now, so that's the default look of the stitch. If I hit that icon there, you'll notice it also shows up here. So that tells me that it has flipped that stitch vertically. This is not what it would normally look like. And even though you wouldn't think there's a difference on this particular stitch, there is a little bit of a difference. So kind of interesting, right? Okay, so that's our serpentine stitch, but we've got more to look at, right? And we want to look at them. Let's go into Patchwork 1, okay? And I'm just going to stitch this out with the default. It's going to lock at the beginning because my locking stitch is on. Let me just get my glasses on here for a second. Okay, so here we go. Okay. Alrighty, there we go. Ooh, isn't that nice? You know what I think about with these stitches in this particular section, this feature on the machine, these decorative quilt stitches, I think these would be great when you want to stitch in the ditch, but you don't want to really be in the ditch, okay, to go across the ditch, right? So I'll do that with one of these stitches coming up. So I think that's really cool. That is just the default setting on the decorative quilt stitch. Patchwork 1, it's called. Okay, so Patchwork 2 in the decorative quilt stitches is a little more open, but it does go back and forth. So let's see what it looks like. All right. Ooh, that's really pretty too. I love these stitches. I think they're gorgeous. Okay, let's keep going because there's more. All right, we have decorative stitches now. Decorative 1. This is really pretty, I think. Let's take a look at this stitch. And I'm just, I'm going to run this one. I'm going to run this one along the seam and see what it looks like. I'm going to put it over here. Let's put it over here. All right, let's see what this looks like. All right, so you can see that goes right along. You can see how it's going across. So it's got a little bit of leeway for you, a little bit of give. If you're not completely straight going along there, it doesn't really matter because it's crossing the seam. It's not like you have to be right in the ditch, and if you're not, it's really obvious, right? So I think that's a really pretty stitch as well. And there are still more. Let's see what we've got here. Decorative number 2. So this is one, kind of a fun one with a bunch of different loops. So let's see what it looks like. Okay, little loop-de-loops going along there. That's a really fun stitch as well. Wouldn't that be cute in a circle? Ooh, that'd be fun, wouldn't it? And we have one more left. We have decorative number 3. So let's see what decorative number 3 looks like. Oh, that's kind of fun too. So you can see the different options you have here. There's some really fun designs in here. I think they're gorgeous. And of course, these are the default settings. Like I said, you can change the width and length on them and make them different. I did that on the Serpentine stitch. I made it a little bit longer, right? But the rest are just the default settings. But I think these are really pretty. I think they're a great option when you're quilting, especially, as I said, if you wanted to quilt in the ditch, but you don't really want to quilt in the ditch, I think these would be great. This one here, you could run along the ditch, and, be back and forth. And if you're out a bit, great. You might even want to run it on one side a bit more, just different options, right? But you don't have to be right in that ditch. And I think they're really pretty. They stitch out really nice, and you've got lots of options by either flipping them or by lengthening them or by making them wider. So there's a lot of possibilities with these decorative quilt stitches on the Janome CM17. While these look like decorative stitches, they are in a different category. But if you're wondering how to use decorative stitches on the Janome CM17, don't worry, I got you covered. Check out this video, that'll give you all the information you need. And for more helpful quilting information, be sure to go to my website at www.chatterboxquilts.com.